Kansas Territory, 1886. Burn it. Elias Reed stared at the Apache woman as though the smoke had stolen his hearing. Behind her, a black wall climbed across the northern horizon. Ahead of them stood 40 acres of wheat, dry and golden beneath the afternoon sun. The harvest was 3 days away. If Elias brought it in, he could pay the bank and keep the farm his wife had helped him build. If he set it on fire, he would lose nearly everything he owned. Aiyana Red Feather pointed toward the approaching smoke. The wind has changed. Elias looked across the field. Men were still working near the barn. His neighbors had gathered along the road, shouting conflicting instructions. Beyond the eastern fence, a broken wagon held 6 children who had not yet reached safety. His 10-year-old daughter, Lucy, stood among them. Aiyana seized his arm. "There's no time. Do it now." Elias looked at the torch in his hand. Then he lowered the flame into his own wheat. The first stalk caught immediately. Fire raced into the field. Someone behind him shouted that he had lost his mind. 6 hours earlier, the sky had been clear. Elias had risen before dawn to inspect the wheat. Each stalk carried a full head of grain. The crop was the best he had produced in 9 years. It needed to be. The Willow Bend bank held a note against the farm. By the end of the month, Elias owed $400. The wheat would cover most of it. Without the harvest, he and Lucy could lose the house, the barn and every acre surrounding them. Elias ran one hand across the grain. His late wife, Sarah, had planted the first rows beside him. She had died from pneumonia 4 winters earlier. Since then, he had raised Lucy, worked the soil and refused every offer to sell. The loudest offer had come from Silas Boone. Boone owned the local grain warehouse, 2 miles of railroad siding and nearly every business debt in Willow Bend. He wanted Elias's property because the southern edge bordered the river. A new loading station there would save Boone's company several hours on every shipment. Elias had refused him 6 times. Boone seemed confident there would not be a 7th. When Elias returned to the farmhouse. That morning, Lucy stood beside the kitchen door carrying a bucket of milk. "Someone's near the East Creek," she said. "Travelers? Families?" Elias followed her gaze. 3 wagons rested beneath the cottonwoods. One leaned heavily to the side because its rear axle had broken. Women unloaded blankets while several children gathered beside the water. 2 elderly men sat beneath a tree. A young Apache woman examined the damaged wagon. Elias took his rifle from the porch. "Stay near the house." Lucy frowned. "They have children. Children can travel with dangerous people. So can farmers." Elias looked at his daughter. "That sounds like something your mother would have said." Lucy smiled. "I know." Elias crossed the pasture. The Apache woman saw him coming and rose. She was tall, perhaps 28, with 2 long black braids and a strong, composed face. A turquoise necklace rested against her light brown buckskin dress. A hunting knife hung from her belt, but her hands remained visible. "My name is Aiyana Red Feather," she said. "Elias Reed. One of our wagon axles broke." "I can see that. We need water and a place to repair it." Elias glanced at the other travelers. There were 17 people in all. Most were women, children, or elders. No armed warriors waited among the trees. "You can use the creek," he said. "The water crosses your property. Water has never paid much attention to fences." Aiyana studied him. "Some men believe it should. I'm not one of them." He pointed toward the barn. "I have seasoned oak that might work for the axle. We can trade blankets and dried meat. Keep your food. We do not ask for charity. Then help me repair the wagon. That is not an equal trade. You haven't seen how badly I repair wagons." Aiyana's expression softened slightly. Then perhaps you are the one receiving help. Lucy arrived carrying a basket of bread before Elias could send her back. She offered it to the children. A little boy took one piece and looked toward Aiyana for permission. She nodded. Within minutes, the travelers were eating beneath the cottonwoods. Elias and Aiyana removed the broken wheel. While they worked, she repeatedly studied the sky, the grass, and the tree line. Elias noticed. Expecting company. Watching the weather. There isn't a cloud above us. That does not mean the land is quiet. She pointed toward a column of ants moving across bare ground. They are leaving the lower nests. Elias looked toward the cottonwoods. Several birds flew south in a tight group. The meadowlarks have abandoned their feeding ground, Aiyana continued. They do that when heat becomes dangerous. It's Kansas in August. Heat is always dangerous. She knelt and touched a patch of grass. The blades crumbled between her fingers. It is drier than it should be. We haven't had rain in 6 weeks. The wind will shift before evening. Elias studied the eastern horizon. Nothing suggested a storm. You can read all that from ants and birds. Can you tell when wheat needs water without asking it? Yes. Then do not be surprised that other living things also speak. A horse cried out near the western fence. One of Elias's geldings had pushed through a loose rail and trapped its rear leg between 2 boards. He ran toward it. The frightened animal kicked at the fence, cutting itself deeper. Elias tried to approach, but the horse swung its head and nearly struck him. Aiyana stepped beside him. Stop pulling. It will break the leg. Not if it becomes still. She removed her blanket and placed it gently across the horse's eyes. Her voice dropped into a low, steady rhythm. The gelding's breathing slowed. Elias cut the lower rail while Aiyana supported the animal's weight with a rope. The leg came free. The wound was shallow. You know horses, Elias said. I know fear. Before he could answer, Aiyana turned toward the north. She lifted her face into the breeze. What is it? Coal oil. Elias smelled only dust. Aiyana walked to the edge of the field. It is faint, but the wind carries it from the railroad. The morning freight train was due to pass Boone's northern siding. Elias saddled 2 horses. Let's take a look. They rode to the ridge overlooking the tracks. Below them, a locomotive stood motionless beside 4 freight cars. One oil tanker had slipped partly from the rails. Dark liquid leaked from a split valve and soaked the ground. Workers used iron bars to force the wheel back into place. Each movement sent sparks across the dry grass. Elias guided his horse down the slope. Stop that work. A foreman raised one hand. This area is closed. You have oil running under the wheels. We know what we have. A small flame appeared near the rail. One worker stamped it out. Aiyana dismounted and examined the grass. The soil is too dry. Clear everyone away and dig a fire line. Silas Boone stepped from the railroad car. He wore a gray suit despite the heat. What are you doing here, Reed? Trying to prevent you from burning half the county. Boone looked at the extinguished patch beside the track. My men have it under control. You have a damaged oil car. I also have a delivery contract worth $20,000. The train moves today. Aiyana pointed toward the western prairie. When the wind turns south, any flame here will travel toward Red Creek. Boone glanced at her clothing. And who might you be? Aiyana Red Feather. Red Creek belongs to your people. Our families camp there. Boone's mouth curved into a thin smile. Then perhaps you should move them. There are elders and children. Then move quickly. Elias dismounted. You need to shut down the engine and bring water from Willow Bend. I need you to return to your farm. Boone stepped closer. You still owe the bank, Elias. I would be careful about interfering with the man willing to purchase your debt. So that is your plan. My plan is business. Sparks fell again from the wheel. This time the flame spread through a strip of grass before workers smothered it with coats. Aiyana's expression tightened. The next one will not stop. Boone turned to the foreman. Get the wheels aligned. Elias wanted to drag him away from the tracks. Aiyana touched Elias's arm. He will not listen. Then we warn the town. They rode hard toward Willow Bend. Marshal Thomas Turner stood outside the sheriff's office, speaking with two merchants. Elias described the leaking tanker and the dry grass. Aiyana explained how the wind would shift. Turner glanced at the clear sky. Boone says his crew has the situation contained. You already spoke with him? Elias asked. He sent a rider 10 minutes ago. Said an Apache group was trespassing near the line and might spread rumors. Aiyana showed no visible anger. We have no reason to create panic. Turner adjusted his gun belt. I did not accuse you of anything. You believed him before hearing us. The marshal looked uncomfortable. Elias stepped forward. Send men with water wagons. Pulling labor away from the grain warehouse costs money. Letting the county burn costs more. Turner glanced toward the railroad. No smoke was visible yet. I'll send someone to inspect it. That will take an hour. Then we'll know more in an hour. Aiyana turned away. We do not have an hour. They left the marshal and rode toward Boone's warehouse. Several ranchers gathered near the loading platform. Elias warned them about the tanker, but Boone's clerk had already told them another version. According to the company, Apache travelers had tampered with the track. Aiyana's people would be blamed if fire broke out. A rancher named Walter Briggs looked toward her. You expect us to believe an Apache woman over the railroad company? Elias answered before she could. I expect you to believe oil leaking onto dry grass. Briggs shook his head. My wheat is waiting to be loaded. Boone shuts down that line, and we all lose money. Grain can wait. Easy for you to say. Your crop isn't harvested. The bank manager, Albert Finch, stepped from the warehouse. He asked Elias to speak privately. Inside the office, Finch placed a document on the desk. Boone has offered to purchase your loan. He has offered before. This time the bank intends to accept. Elias stared at him. The payment is not due for 3 weeks. You have missed 2 interest installments. The wheat will cover them. If nothing happens to it. Finch moved the paper closer. Sell the southern acreage today, and Boone will cancel the debt. All he asks is that you publicly state there is no fire danger and that the Apache travelers should leave the railroad property. Elias looked through the window. Aiyana waited beside the horses. She had not asked him to defend her. She had brought a warning that might save everyone in the county. You want me to lie so Boone can keep his train moving. I want you to protect your daughter's home. By helping him endanger hers. Finch sighed. Those people do not live here. They're here today. That is not the same thing. It is if the fire reaches them. Elias pushed the document back. No, Finch's expression hardened. If your harvest fails, the bank will take the farm. Then I suppose you should hope it doesn't fail. Outside, Aiyana read the answer on his face. You refused. Yes. You could have protected your land. Boone caused the danger. That does not make his offer less valuable. No. It makes the price too high. Aiyana mounted her horse. You do not owe my people this sacrifice. This stopped being about debt when Boone chose profit over human lives. A low whistle sounded from the north. Elias turned. A thin column of smoke rose beyond the ridge. Then another appeared beside it. A railway worker rode into town at full speed. The oil car caught, he shouted. Fire crossed the western ditch. Marshal Turner emerged from his office. How large? Half a mile and spreading. The marshal began issuing orders. Church bells rang across Willow Bend. Men hurried toward wagons. Women gathered children. The caution everyone had dismissed became panic within minutes. Aiyana studied the smoke. It is moving east. Toward Red Creek, Elias said. She nodded. My people must move now. Elias rode beside her. I'll help. Your daughter is at the farm. Lucy knows where to shelter. The wind has not turned yet. When it does, where will the fire go? Aiyana looked toward his property. Across your wheat. They reached Red Creek first. Families packed blankets, tools and food into 2 wagons. Older children led horses toward the river. Aiyana divided everyone into groups. Those who could ride would carry infants. The strongest adults would help elders. No one would travel alone. Elias found Lucy distributing strips of wet cloth. What are you doing here? He asked. Mrs. Reed needed medicine for her baby. You came without telling me. I left a note. A note does not stop me from worrying. There wasn't time to ask. He almost scolded her. Then he saw Aiyana hide a faint smile. A wagon carrying 6 children started toward the southern river crossing. Lucy climbed aboard to help a frightened little girl. Elias rode beside them until Aiyana called from the ridge. Look north. The wind struck with sudden force. Smoke rolled sideways. Flames that had been moving east bent sharply toward the south. The main fire now aimed directly at Red Creek, Elias's farm and Willow Bend beyond it. The horses pulling the children's wagon panicked. One wheel struck a deep rut and splintered. The wagon tipped against a bank. No one was seriously hurt, but the children were stranded nearly a mile from the river. Elias started toward Lucy. Aiyana blocked his path. If you bring them straight to the water, the fire will reach the crossing first. My daughter is there. So are 5 other children. What do you expect me to do? Give them a place where the flames cannot follow. Aiyana pointed toward his wheat field. The crop stretched from the northern road to a broad patch of plowed earth near the farmhouse. If we burn it from the south edge, the wind will carry a controlled fire north. Elias understood. The wheat will burn before the main front arrives. It will leave bare ground. And everyone can shelter in the center. Yes. The word seemed impossible. That crop is all I have. Aiyana's gaze did not leave his. No. Lucy is what you have. Neighbors arrived with shovels and water barrels. When they heard the plan, several objected. You'll burn the whole farm, Briggs said. That fire will do it anyway, Aiyana replied. Briggs pointed toward the northern horizon. It may turn again. It will not. You cannot know that. I know what the smoke is doing. I know what the birds did this morning. I know where the wind traveled before you felt it. Briggs looked at Elias. You take orders from her now. Elias watched Lucy helping the younger children from the broken wagon. He thought of Sarah standing beside him during their first harvest. He remembered promising to keep the farm for their daughter. Keeping it had always meant protecting the soil, the house and the crop. Now the meaning changed. A farm without Lucy would be an empty boundary around his grief. Aiyana handed him a torch. There's no time. Do it now. Elias took it. He walked to the southern edge of the field. Every step carried him closer to financial ruin. The wheat whispered around his knees. He lowered the torch. Fire climbed the first stalk. Then the next. A line of flame spread across the crop. The neighbors stared. Elias Reed had burned the harvest meant to save his home. "Move!" Aiyana ordered. Her voice broke their shock. She organized the workers into two lines. One group pulled plows through the southern boundary to protect the farmhouse. Another carried water along the eastern edge. Apache adults beat down stray flames with soaked blankets. Elias hitched his strongest horses to a steel plow. Aiyana rode beside him, watching the controlled burn. "Keep the furrow ahead of the fire," she called. "I know how to plow." "Then prove it faster." Despite everything, Elias almost laughed. The horses strained against the harness. Dark earth rolled behind the blade. Smoke covered the field. The smaller fire moved north, consuming dry stalks and leaving a wide black strip. Aiyana led the first families into the burned area. Ash rose around their feet, but no fuel remained to ignite again. Elias reached the stranded wagon. He lifted two children onto his horse. Lucy carried the youngest girl. "I knew you would come," she said. "I almost came too late." Aiyana said you wouldn't. Elias glanced toward the Apache woman. She was guiding an elderly man across the hot ground while giving instructions to three ranchers. Trust had formed around her because the danger left no room for prejudice. The controlled burn was nearly complete when Silas Boone arrived with 4 railroad guards. "What have you done?" he shouted. Elias kept driving the plow. Boone rode into his path. "Stop those horses. Move. That weed is collateral held by the bank. It's my field. Not after this month." Boone pointed toward the flames. "You destroyed property my company was prepared to purchase." Elias studied him. The fire threatening hundreds of people seemed less important to Boone than grain he did not yet own. "You expected the bank to take it," Elias said. Boone said nothing. "You knew I couldn't repay the loan if something happened to the harvest. I knew you were already failing. You planned to buy the farm after forcing me into default." Boone reached for the reins. Elias knocked his hand away. One of the guards moved forward. Marshal Turner rode onto the field with 6 townsmen. "Stand down," he ordered. Boone turned. "Arrest Reed. He destroyed secured property and is helping trespassers." Turner looked toward the blackened safety zone. Apache families and townspeople were gathering there together. Beyond the northern ridge, the main fire had grown into a towering wall. The marshal's face changed. "Aiyana was right," he said. Boone lowered his voice. "Think carefully, Thomas. My company pays half the town's freight contracts. Your company caused this. It was an accident. You hit it." Turner motioned to his deputies. "Get Boone and his men off the field." The railroad owner stared at Elias. "When this is over, the bank will take every inch." Elias returned his hands to the plow. "Then you can argue about dirt after the children are safe." The main fire approached faster than anyone expected. Heat reached the field before the flames became visible through the smoke. The horses began to panic. Elias urged them toward the last unplowed section. If they completed the furrow, the controlled burn would remain separated from the farmhouse and barn. A gust struck from the west. One horse stumbled. The plow blade hit a buried rock. The machine flipped. Elias fell beneath the wooden frame. The crossbar pinned his leg. The horses pulled against tangled harnesses. Flames moved through the remaining wheat. "Elias!" Lucy screamed. Aiyana turned her mare. The larger wildfire was less than 400 yards away. She could have continued toward the safety zone. Instead, she rode back. "Keep the children in the burned ground," she shouted. She dismounted beside Elias and tried to lift the plow. It did not move. "Leave me," he said. You are not making useful suggestions. The main fire is almost here. I can see it. Aiyana tied her rope around the frame and secured the other end to the saddle horn. She led the horse forward. The line tightened. The plow shifted several inches. Elias pulled his leg free. He tried to stand and nearly collapsed. Aiyana caught his arm. Can you walk? Not quickly. Then you will ride. What about you? I will finish the line. With what? She picked up a shovel. Elias took another. They moved along the final gap, throwing dirt across the advancing flames. Ranchers joined them. Then Apache men and women arrived from the burned field. Marshal Turner came next. Even Briggs, who had argued against the plan, grabbed a shovel. They closed the break together. The controlled fire consumed the last strip of wheat and died against the exposed soil. Everyone retreated to the blackened center. The main wildfire reached them moments later. Flames towered above the northern fence. A roar filled the air. The barn roof shook. People crouched beneath wet blankets. Parents held children close. Horses crowded together, trembling. The fire struck the empty field. It searched for wheat, grass, or brush. Nothing remained. The flames weakened. Some curled along the edge of the safety zone before collapsing into smoke. Burning debris fell around the families, but water crews extinguished each ember. The fire divided around the blackened acres. One section moved toward the river. Another lost strength against the plowed southern ground. Willow Bend survived. Red Creek remained standing. No one died. When the smoke began clearing, Lucy found Elias beside an overturned water barrel. She wrapped both arms around him. Is the farm gone? She asked. He looked across the field. The wheat had become ash. The barn was scorched but standing. The house remained intact. I don't know. Aiyana approached. Her face was dark with soot. A burn had opened along one sleeve, though the skin beneath appeared unharmed. Elias looked at her. You were right. That matters less than everyone being alive. Marshal Turner joined them. I should have listened when you first came to town. Aiyana met his eyes. Yes. The direct answer surprised him. He removed his hat. I'm sorry. An apology will not keep the next road open. What do you need? A marked evacuation route from Red Creek to the river. No fences. No tolls. No railroad claim across it. Turner nodded. I'll put it before the council. No, Aiyana pointed toward the smoldering field. You will put it in writing before people forget what happened here. For once, the marshal did not argue. Investigators arrived from the territorial office 3 days later. The damaged oil car still rested beside the tracks. Workers testified that Boone had ordered them to continue despite the leak. Records from his office showed he had suppressed 2 safety reports. Another letter revealed his agreement with Albert Finch. Once Elias defaulted, the bank would transfer the farm to Boone's company at less than half its value. The most damaging document was a statement prepared before the fire. It blamed Apache travelers for sabotaging the railway. Boone had planned his explanation before the accident became a disaster. He was charged with fraud, reckless endangerment, conspiracy, and destruction of evidence. Finch lost his banking license. The railroad company paid compensation to Red Creek families, Willow Bend residents and Elias. The payment did not restore the wheat. It did give Elias enough time to keep the farm. He did not rebuild alone. The first wagon arrived from Red Creek carrying fence posts. A second brought dried food. Ranchers followed with seed, tools and horses. Briggs delivered 2 new plow blades. I was wrong, he said. Elias examined the equipment. That must have hurt. More than carrying these. Lucy laughed. Aiyana helped design the evacuation route. It ran through the northern pasture, crossed the burned field and reached the river without passing a locked gate. Elias signed a permanent agreement allowing anyone to use it during danger. Beside the path, the two communities built a stone water trough. Travelers filled canteens there. Children rested beneath a cottonwood shelter. No one was charged for water. Winter covered the burned acres with snow. When spring arrived, Elias prepared the soil again. He expected to plant alone on the first morning. Instead, he found Aiyana waiting beside the field. Behind her stood families from Red Creek. Willow Bend farmers arrived from the western road. Lucy carried the first seed sack. "You organized this?" Elias asked. Aiyana shook her head. No one needed to be told. They worked until sunset. Fresh rows stretched across the black soil. New wheat appeared several weeks later. The shoots were bright green against the scars left by the fire. Elias and Aiyana stood beside the water trough while children played along the creek. "I thought burning that field meant losing everything," he said. "You lost one harvest. It was a good harvest. So you have reminded me." He smiled. Aiyana looked toward Lucy. The girl was helping an Apache boy repair a small wooden cart. "You saved every season that could come after it," she said. Elias's expression became quiet. "I would not have known what to do without you. You listened. Eventually. That is more than many men managed that day." Over the following months, Aiyana divided her time between Red Creek and the Reed farm. She taught residents to recognize wind shifts, animal movement and signs of drought. Elias showed young families how to cultivate grain without fencing the evacuation path. Their affection grew without announcement. He never asked her to abandon her people. She never treated his sacrifice as a debt that required repayment. One evening, they walked to the northern edge of the field. The new wheat moved beneath a clean wind. Elias opened his hand between them. He did not reach for her. "What do you want, Aiyana?" She looked toward Red Creek. Then toward the farmhouse, where Lucy had placed 3 cups on the supper table. "I want the road to remain open." "It will." "I want the water to belong to everyone." "It does." "And I want to decide where I stand." Elias nodded. "That belongs to you." Aiyana placed her hand in his. "Then tonight, I choose to stand here." They walked toward the house together. Behind them, the wheat continued growing across land once sacrificed to save 2 communities. People later told the story of a desperate farmer who burned his finest crop because an Apache woman gave him an impossible command. But those who had survived remembered the truth. Elias did not shock everyone because he destroyed something valuable. He shocked them because, at the moment that mattered most, he understood what was worth more. A field could be replanted. A barn could be rebuilt. Money could be earned again. A human life offered no second harvest.